Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, members, officers and viewers. Welcome to the Overview Scrutiny Committee meeting. It is being conducted as a hybrid meeting in accordance with the remote meetings protocol and the Council standing orders to ensure that we continue to take democratic decisions in an open and transparent manner. For those attending remotely, I would remind you that this meeting is being streamed live to the public. So can I remind you to switch off your camera and microphone when not speaking to the meeting to help to improve the quality of the recording. Can I ask remote members to switch on their chat function and use this when you wish to speak? Please do not speak until I invite you to, and remember to switch off your camera and mic afterwards. As this is a relatively small meeting, voting online may be required together with the vote of members present in the chamber. So before I declare a vote, I will ensure that all members' votes are collated. As well as being broadcast live, a recording of this meeting will be uploaded to the Council website for public viewing and training within the Council. A Welsh translation of this meeting is available on request. Could I draw your attention now to the agenda? Any apologies?
Apologies from Councillor Cleverly and Councillor Rheoli.
Thank you. They were to attend as chairs of the other committees, but they unfortunately are not available. Any declarations of interest? No? Okay, thank you. Minutes of the previous meetings then. The meeting of the 30th of September. Page 3, for accuracy. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6, page 7, and page 8. So we'll move to the regional record, please. Thank you. Are there any matters arising? Councillor Evans.
Chairman, on page 6, the penultimate item, paragraph there, saying the committee raised concerns regarding the lack of university students in Newport and asked for information regarding student numbers and support provided via funding are shared, and we get a response from the relevant service area. To date, I don't believe we've had one, so I think it'd be helpful if we had a response to that. I also think it might be helpful if we asked the university to come and explain why they seem to have abandoned the city.
Okay.
Had we given them a lot of funding in the past, I think it's not unreasonable to.
Do you want me to respond to?
Well, I was going to ask Mr. Coleman, where is the relevant area? No, you haven't had on this question.
I'm trying to understand. Have we got that in the action ordinance? Are you right?
I've spoken to, I believe it was Tracy Brooks for a response. I chased that in December. I haven't had them just yet. I think it was going to go to a committee at the place.
Well, I think there's two separate issues.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's issues. So one is the response to the previous questions. So
Yeah,
if you need that, I'll check that. But
Thank you.
I think that's a proper response to that. I think it would be, as far as the university is concerned, it could be placed. Obviously, the university, we've got powers to if you would like to. I think in the scrutiny chairs meetings, if you want to do that, probably with that conversation, probably that best. Like, because it can either be here or the place. People scrutiny. It's not a full partnership, is it? So I know they are, but I think that would be a complementary effect. Because of the overview, if we would engage with an MBA properly, I think that conversation chairs that. But it would be an invite. You obviously couldn't get it.
Obviously, we've got Cardiff University a set up in the city now, so they brilliant partners, I suppose.
And they work in partnership with Tracy's comment there about the Partnership Scrutiny Committee. They work in partnership with ranges of things, but I think that's various questions that's difficult about student members in the use. So that's how they
Any other matters arising on the set of minutes? No? Okay, thank you. Could we now move on to the minutes of the 25th of October then, please? Which is starting on page 9. For accuracy, please. Page 9, 10, 11, and 12. I believe there are some matters arising from this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. On page 12, minute 5, the Scrutiny Annual Report 2021-2022. Democratic and Electoral Service Manager providing a verbal update on the annual report. I suppose you could bring up inaccuracy. It wasn't an update on the actual report itself. It was the fact that we were going to get the report distributed by email to make comments and recommendations before it went to council. Obviously, that hasn't happened. So.
Yeah, I can certainly take that. I'll certainly update it for accuracy.
I think it can be looked at two ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think an update, but actually doesn't make the report.
Definitely, I'll update that to clarify. The actual scrutiny annual report is with Diana at the minute. You can definitely have it before the end of the financial year, so you can go to council.
Thank you.
Apologies, Chair. I'm on here as a producer and I can't see a way to put my hand up.
Right, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the report is with me, and apologies that it hasn't been shared with the committee as yet for comments. We did discuss this before Christmas, and the decision was made to share it via email, so that will be with members within the next week for comment prior to it going to council.
Apologies, members. I didn't ask you if you were happy with the accuracy of these minutes.
Yes.
Second. No. Okay, thank you. Anyone against? No. Okay, thank you very much. Right. Moving on to the subject, budget and the medium-term financial projections. We've got Mr. Rushworth with us today, who's going to give us a brief overview of how the budget is proposed and the steps that he's taken this year.
Thanks, Chair.
Sorry, before you start, Myron, I just
Yeah.
because I think it's slightly wrong. So Myron's obviously going to do the budget process, Tracy will do public engagements. Yeah, that's that part of their role. Also do this basically each year. So
I particularly wanted it this year because we've got so many new members.
no, absolutely. So Myron will start off, and then Tracy will have the engagement, and then the three of us will answer questions.
Thanks. So the budget process. So I mean, let's begin just slight context for this year first. You know, this is the first year since we left COVID. This year's budget has got a fair amount of contingencies built into it. Budgets that we've got and that are committed, but not into this year. And we've got those in place to manage the risks from moving out of the unpredictable kind of world that we are now in. And I think that's been a very important thing that we did for this year's budget, and it's stood us in good place. And that's the context really for next year's budget now, because we are seeing the impacts of coming out of the COVID sort of 2 years, I guess, so sort of period with Welsh government support through the Hardship Fund now stopping, and we've got a lot of issues, not just directly linked to the COVID, but also, we all know about inflationary issues that the world, certainly this country, is also facing, and that is what what's made this year's budget process difficult. So we've followed broadly the same process that we do normally, but the context that we are doing it in is has been incredible. And you know, table 1 on the cabinet report that went in December shows the assumptions that we had back in March this year, and then we're looking at them now 12 months later or 10 months later, and they are absolutely nothing like those. So the situation has moved very quickly as well. It's not just a slow burn issue. The whole inflation issue, you know, the pay issue, the risks in our contractors and suppliers, etc. out there has come upon us in a very short few months. So yeah, so the process has broadly been the same, but it's been much more difficult to actually play it out as we have. So in terms of the budget process, again, it's broadly the same, but we essentially start working on our planning work in the summer. At that point, we've got the outturn for the previous year, and there will be some intelligence there often. Now, obviously, we didn't get that much intelligence from last year's actuals because last year was kind of COVID year, hardship fund, etc. It really wasn't a typical year. But what we did find towards the summer was that we had 2 big legacy issues coming from COVID, which was the emergency placements within social care and the homelessness costs. Now, we had those costs in the COVID period, but with no more government support now, and that issue did not wane after COVID. We were faced with a very significant looming cost there. So actually, we've got more intelligence this year from the in-year budget monitoring that will probably start to flesh out towards the kind of some of the key problem areas. I think those were the 2 big areas, which are directly linked back, I think, to sort of coming out of COVID, etc. So we've been looking at those for a number of months, in terms of how big that issue is. Secondly, what Welsh Government is doing about it in terms of funding or not, and then that tells us what we have to be getting prepared for. And I think thirdly, you know, is it a kind of a one-off thing? Is it something that's going to be going away soon? Is it kind of a, you know, just a 12-month blip, etc.? Just trying to understand those issues. As that was happening as well, inflation was taking off, and 2 specific issues or 3 specific issues for us. One is pay, because you know pay in government is normally not settled until well into the financial year, and with the inflation increasing, the pay negotiations were caught up with that. Secondly, energy. We buy our energy in advance. We're part of the biggest public sector purchasing consortium in the UK, the Chraffu Commercial Services. We don't have a problem with energy costs this year because we bought it all last year before all this happened. However, we've been monitoring that on a monthly basis in terms of the feedback that purchasing consortium gives us. And literally, we've been monitoring it all the way through until about January and making sure that our budget work is as up to date as it possibly can be for sort of next year. They've now bought something like 95% of next year's energy needs. So we've got a pretty accurate idea as to what that cost is. And thirdly, it's the cost of our contractors or the ones particularly affected by exactly the same issue. So mainly our social care areas, but also our transport area as well. So inflation has been one kind of stream, and specific kind of COVID legacy stuff, mainly around those two issues, has been the other stream we've been focusing on. We got to a position, it's important at some point, and as early as we feel that it's reasonable to draw a line under that work, because the organisation needs to understand, needs to have a stable bottom line to essentially say that's what we need to work to. That's what next year's budget at this point reasonably is. So we did that in early autumn, September ways. And clearly the scale of the challenge had increased very, very significantly, as that table in the report shows. As a management team, as a corporate management team, we then agreed how we would deal with that budget gap and the kind of savings targets that the services were given. And then services went away and worked within their management teams to see what options were available. There then followed in the autumn, as always, initially there's an officer process just to review the initial thoughts. So we had a couple of days, executive board reviewing all budget proposals, making sure that they were in line with sort of corporate priorities, or they didn't do anything that would scupper any sort of corporate priorities as best we could. That the key priorities were not duly affected, and that they were reasonable, or as reasonable as the scale of kind of challenge allowed it to sort of be. So that officer review happened first. It then goes into the political, the informal political process with cabinets, cabinet members, and then a position was agreed in November. The draft budget was announced in December, as you're all aware of. As always, the process doesn't stop then. We consult on that, but there is a lot of refining, and the RSG was given to us on or about the same day as the cabinet meeting in December. That was much more positive because of the extra money that came through the autumn UK budgets, that came through to the Welsh government, and a lot of that came to local governments. About £11 million extra there. But the position that we had in December was like about 16 million deficit there. So it helped a lot, but we still had to go ahead and work through the budget process still. We are still working through the final detail now before we draw a line under it next week, and then that'll be announced into effect. So that's the basic process, not too dissimilar to the past. As I said, much more challenging over the summer, early autumn last year, and I think that the officer review process and the informal political review process clearly was more challenging this year because of the scale and the number of the proposals that were there. So we're kind of getting towards the end of it now. And obviously, we'll be talking about comms and engagements after me, but that's just come to an end now, as it were. So we are in the final rows of the project.
Thank you very much. Will you take questions at this point?
Yeah, happy to.
Councillor Rheoli. Councillor Rheoli.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to establish, Maren, because as you know, I think the last information we've had on the various elements that sort of fund the budget back in possibly early December, was it, when we've had the seminar to all members on all this. So I think the table that I'm interested in asking you to clarify maybe one element of it, it's on page 31. Table 4. So the largest element, of course, that actually fund the budget, isn't it, is the RSG, which comes from the Welsh Government, where I think it was assumed to be something like 3%, was it, increase on last year?
It was 2.5. Yeah.
Sorry, did you wish to say something?
I say it was 3.5, but yeah.
Yeah. Now, in the event, as we know, I think it was on the 14th of December, it was clarified as 8.9%.
Yeah.
Can you clarify in sort of pounds what that means and the impact of that then on the size of the gap, which at the time we believed to be £27 million?
Yeah. So I'm just looking at a paper that I anticipated that would lead to. So bear with me a second. Yeah. So when the papers went to cabinet in December with the with those assumptions in there, the gap was 16 million at that point, but there were no school savings included in that position. The extra settlement value came to 11.7 million. So from our assumption up to the kind of just under 9%, the value of that additional income was 11.7 million.
Okay.
So it obviously didn't deal with the gap that we had. That gap in the budget in December, though, was based on, you know, the key assumption of council tax at 9.5. There was no school savings at that point, but that was announced in the actual cabinet meeting itself. And obviously, we had RSG increase in there at the at that lower level.
So where is it now then, please, Myron?
Well, I think I'm going to be a bit careful here, Councillor, because obviously, okay. So at the cabinet stage, the gap was 16 million.
Okay.
We got an additional 11.7 million that came from the RSG, and then school savings were announced. There wasn't a value attached to sort of that. But we obviously had to work that one through. Now, Cabinet will be announcing the final decisions in a couple of weeks, and we will be setting out the kind of the journey from December to in the actual meeting itself. So because that's a developing area of work that we're doing at the moment, I don't think it would be appropriate to sort of to go into that at this stage. Okay,
so the cabinet in its next meeting then, which is, I don't know, a couple of weeks' time, perhaps, is it? Will be looking then, you know, in order to produce a balanced budget, we'll be looking at plugging a gap of 15 million. Is that
well, essentially, the gap was 16 million in the December cabinet. 11.7 additional RSG income clearly reduced that down to about 4 million. And then, of course, there's further savings that the cabinet announced at schools in the December meeting, and we've done more work, as I've just explained now, since the December meeting on, on the final bit of detail on the budget, and we're working that through with the cabinet currently, and that will be announced in their meeting in a couple of weeks' time.
Okay, thank you. Chair, I have another question, but I'll leave others for the time being, and I'll come to that later if I may.
Okay, fine, thank you. Councillor James? Councillor James, please.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I had a trouble unmuting myself. I was just wondering how far into the negotiations you are with these other service providers in the budget, Bernardo's and Caerphilly Council. I think I saw 10% reductions there. So how far are you into those negotiations, and how confident are you that you'll be able to deliver those savings as you're setting out in the budget?
Sorry, Councillor James, with due respect, it's not really a question for an officer that will.
I think that would have been picked up in one of the other scrutiny meetings as a specific question.
I checked.
Yeah. So
yeah.
You're not asking actually the person who's doing those negotiations at this point. So I can't actually give you an answer, because it would be my colleagues from the service areas who are making those savings that would have that information for you. But we can certainly take it away. But in terms of this process, we're here about the general process. Yeah.
Okay, are you content with the written answer?
I'm content with a written answer.
Okay.
My next question was about streetlights, and actually I've checked and it hasn't been asked, so am I okay to continue?
Well, you can see what the state is about streetlight, but he's come to answer questions about budget preparation, not what other individual service heads have questioned as a part of your cast.
Just the streetlights budget line actually has several savings lumped into one, and they don't define them. So I was actually wondering if it has been worked out how much is being saved by the reduction in energy costs and how much is being saved by the reduction in maintenance.
Happy to take that one away, Chair. Again, that would have been a question or an area of interest for the service area scrutiny. But
yeah, I'm on that. We did talk about that. It might not have been minuted, but we did speak about it. We covered so much.
I'll go back to you with that.
Can we try and draw some structure to this meeting, please? We're asking this officer to talk about budget preparation and potential proposals. At the end of this, we're going to look at the comments from the other committees and see if we'd like to either endorse or, I suppose, reject. Although I'm not quite sure what we would do if we rejected the comments from the other committees. They wouldn't be able to go back during this budget preparation period. Okay, so anything specifically on how he prepared the budget, how he and his office prepared the budget? Okay. I'm sorry, Councillor James, you still seem to have a hand up.
I got you.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else to question on the preparation? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Mr. Kim and what she's done about public consultation and engagement.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just talk through the outline and then start questions. So budget consultation is obviously part of a all year round consultation with the public on various things, more than 40 activities through last year. And as outlined on page 14 of the report, the budget consultation period started on 14th December and closed yesterday. Phil, we're about to work through those responses, of course. It looks like. We have the highest level of response we've had for several years, which is obviously pleasing, but not all of that work is complete. In terms of the consultation period, we went for the longest possible period we could, given the budget process, if that makes sense. And we have a range of activities which I'll just quickly sketch those, and I'm sure you've got to follow that on. So we had the online survey, which is a big part of our promotion. We had a supplementary survey on bus Wi-Fi, which are specific questions. In the online survey, we sought to have a more nuanced response, so rather than yes or no, we gave much more ability to give opinions, such as a smaller saving, I agree, but I think it should be smaller and so on, which is a kind of step up from where we've been before. In terms of social media promotion, we had 39 social media posts, website presence, Newport Matters, and also press releases. We promoted via schools, school parents and teachers. Newport Matters, as I've mentioned, council staff through employee communications, so a significant staff cohort within Newport. We attended community events where the consultation was promoted and lots of work related, such as the warm welcome centres, participatory budgeting events, which were running over the same period. In terms of directly with service users or potential service users, that takes place across all service areas. My service support that, so we meet with service users and their families as needed, and several of those meetings have taken place. We also undertook, I think this was a previous scrutiny recommendation, pre-budget engagement during the autumn, when we talked about the relative importance of services, the corporate plan or the budget proposals, and that was used to inform some of those budget proposals. We'll have a response from the Fairness Commission, which is, as you know, an independent organisation. We meet with the trade unions through the Employee Partnership Forum, which is chaired by a cabinet member and attended by all relevant service leads. And the trade unions will be putting a response in, which will form part of the cabinet work. I feel like I missed something there. That was the ancient conclusion.
Thank you. And you okay to some questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, on the consultation, now this committee has looked at consultations previously and been less than happy with the range of the consultations. So with that in mind, open the questions, please. Councillor Evans?
Chair, yeah, can I welcome the pre-budget consultation? I know it's something I've done particularly well in the past, I haven't done at all. Just about interest, I think it said in the report that it was about 900 responses. What sort of questions and how much detail were you going into? Because there's a huge amount of information. Understandably, you're going to have certain focus groups or certain groups who are going to be affected, and there'll be others. I mean, one of the concerns I have is that so a lot of savings in there are so small. There's a shop ability saving £7,000 a year in the overall budget. It's an awful lot of work to do, a lot of questions about such a tiny saving, which actually might have, you know, a tiny saving for the council, but a massive impact on that particular organisation. So, what sort of detail did you go into? Were they general questions? Or would you ask questions about parking charges and car park? How would you try and ascertain where we were, what the public were saying and doing?
Yeah, and you're right, they were very general because they wouldn't talk about stage ability or parking charges. We talk very much, and we can get a copy of this committee. We talk very much about which services are important. This is obviously really complicated because the services that are important to the people of Newport generally are universal, so they're equity services, and a lot of our high cost services are important to small groups of people because of their needs, so there's some capacity in response. but we talked about which things are important and what sorts of things are important going forward. And then in terms of the budget process, managers were aware of that, senior leads were aware of that in order to swim in their process. What I would say is, given the scale of the savings required, we need difficult to kind of assuage any of those views.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Did you ask them what wasn't important? There's obviously different levels or different degrees, but if you had a scale of, symbolic language, or whatever it is, partial toilets, well, the public toilets will always seem to come out as well. When it comes to difference between education, public toilets, those public toilets will be more contentious than savings in education. But I guess sort of trying to in other areas you ask someone, what don't you think has to be? Is an issue with money that leisure services? Do you think they should be?
So in particular, what people thought weren't important were corporate frontline services, corporate versus frontline services, which would mean, yes, that is common, as you know, because it's not what thing. The priorities were about place-based services. I would say they're universal by everyone, but also services for very vulnerable people. So they were the kind of two main interests of that. And what wasn't important was largely sector type services. Interestingly, we have a proportionately lower corporate sector spend against other councils.
Then, I mean, would you ask some questions like, are you happy to pay for improved facilities in parks? Would you look at, say they needed a funding monetary park under the special, but it can't be happy to pay for it. We able to look at potential ways of how they would react to paying for something not happy.
We can not get this today, so what is important and something of a.
It just might be interesting to know because you're looking at a different way of putting savings or whatever. It might be interesting to know.
Almost kind of alternate.
Yes, Richard, thank you. I think that's really useful. So part of what we do. So obviously, Mike was talking about the pace of this and actually the scale. A challenge to try and deal, but in the midst of that, we're also developing the transformation program that will support the delivery of the broader plan. Actually, there have been different ways of engaging with the public around this. We don't put around the digital strategies. So, which is one of the core terms today, it's the climate change strategy as well. We started the conversation with the public within public consultation around assets, which is also a big core, which is trying to engage in what to do with our assets. So actually, I think questions like that would sit really well in that service redesign aspect of our transformation program. So I think that's a really good point.
Okay. I've got Councillor Allen-Wavy, Councillor James, and Councillor Horton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's the consultation side of things. I know this is something we address every year. Can I first of all say that in all the years of austerity, I think this must be one of the most difficult budget, I think, that the council will be setting, just in terms of the gap that it has to plug really. And in terms of the number of proposals there that affect a lot of people, I think this for me has been one of the hardest that I've been through. I've been through the public consultation on the website. And Reece, thank you for sort of managing to find my response and send it back to me, because I really it took quite a lot to do that. And And in terms of the quality of that survey, I think it's very good. It's very good compared to previous years, but it takes time. And in my sort of interaction with stakeholders, you know, very few of them really knew again of, you know, that they can actually go in there and actually address some of the proposals made. So I think this is something we need to think about, how we actually make people aware of that. Which sort of bring me to the second part of my question, which is, can we outline what other sort of engagement, you know, did we initiate, if you like, with stakeholders? The stakeholders that are actually affected by some of those really very far-reaching proposals for saving on council services we are making. You know, I mean, when you go through that, you see how difficult it is for some of the stakeholders. Now, I did ask a question in the performance people scrutiny about schools, and it seems, you know, it's kind of tentative, really, the engagement that's been made with the schools, yet the proposals on school finances will be quite big, I think. So can I ask, can you outline what other sort of engagement, you know, meetings with the stakeholders affected by our proposals actually did take place or is taking place before the cabinet meets? Thank you.
Sorry, could I just clarify, before the cabinet meets? Do you mean we're looking backwards now rather than forwards?
Whatever, anyway. I mean, I thought the cabinet really will be meeting to set the budget, which will go to council.
Yeah, on the 14th of February, I think it is. 15th. I don't think, how is the process being managed to this point is all you can reasonably ask about. We can't predict what officers will advise the cabinet in due course.
That's right. So you know, we as I said, the work on the final details of the budget and some of the final changes are currently in progress, and we would obviously not be discussing those at this point. They will be announced in the meeting by the leader, and then there'll be a recommendation for the resulting council tax that comes from that budget. And the council will debate the council tax rate, which is their decision in at the end of February.
Yeah. Is that clear, Councillor Alan Wayne? Sorry, Councillor Alan Wayne.
Well, not sure, Chair. I don't know, but there's been so many. I mean, I give you one example, and that is probably a new ward, and that is the Gleeblands, the parking in the Gleeblands. I mean, the number of people that have been, that approach me, because I mean, I tend to use the indoor bowling centre. A lot of people probably approached too, I don't know, but you know, it just struck me that those people were not aware really that they, you know, it's a place that, for example, is used a lot by people for walking, you know, for there's a children playground there that I noticed, and you know, and all that. So I was struck by, you know, how unaware they were really. So I think this is what we, you know, when we sort of look at the, you know, the sort of the various level of the well-being agenda there. I thought, you know, that
very interested me in being a member of the Bowls Club.
Sorry.
I can assure you that the management of the Bowls Club have been in touch with me, and they were aware of the consultation process. How it hadn't filtered down to their members, obviously I don't know. Please.
So I suppose partly an answer to that question. So just pick up the schools side. But obviously it's complicated with schools. I know finance colleagues and education colleagues will be working closely with individual schools around that. So I think, you know, I don't think there's an issue about engagement there. Some of the other things, I think we've had insurances from service areas, but you know, if you want a written response from what specific engagement those services are put in place for those, we can do that. They wouldn't necessarily form part of the public consultation process, but it would be an engagement out to those next for those services.
Give us some examples, Chair. So, for example, I spoke about service area engagement. It's difficult because it can be with service users or potential users, and not, you know, not necessarily the same thing. So, for example, at Oaklands, there were meetings with parents and other interested parties, and that's resulted in individual responses and also a collective response there. On the short break services, there were several face-to-face meetings with families. In libraries, library staff were speaking directly to service users. As you said, we made stakeholders aware, whether their individual users were aware. That's kind of a question underneath that, I think. Children's services were meeting with families. With schools, I just want to come back to the trade union element to that also, and the employee partnership forum. And I guess in terms of reach, to go back to, we are seeing bigger numbers than we've ever seen before. Of course, we do have a bigger issue than we've ever had before, but the highest it's been for 5 years. That said, not all of the advert has done, and it only closed yesterday, so I would flag that. The point was also made about stakeholders, so there are other stakeholders within this. You've got Live, SOS, you've got Norse, you know, there are major stakeholders who are part of the budget proposals, not in the consultation as the kind of the back office stuff that they've engaged with individually. And we're working with those types of stakeholders also to make sure their savings are made, but also their staff are aware, they also employ people, so a wide range of stakeholder management there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay.
You can check for that, Councillor.
Yeah, Chair. The only thing, just one last point, which is, the way set out in the public consultation, the proposal, the saving proposals and so on, I thought it was very good actually, and it should have been used for the performance scrutinies. It was set out very differently on the agenda of those performance scrutiny meeting. I think the way that it is online was a lot clearer. Because it gave sort of a narrative about every single measure, and I found that very, very helpful in the public consultation. Unfortunately, that wasn't repeated on the agendas for the scrutiny performance committees, and I think, for the future, I think we ought to bear in mind perhaps we harmonise those. But I have to say the public consultation on the website is really set out quite well, and for that, I would praise the authors of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor James.
So I think my questions are definitely about process this time, but please stop me if I'm wrong. Earlier on in your summary, you said we would. I couldn't actually hear because it's quite. It is quite muffly when you're watching from home. But you are receiving or have received responses from the Fairness Commission and trade unions. Is that right?
It's closed yesterday, so we will have from trade unions, and I talked about us meeting with them in the employee partnership forum, and kind of a number of meetings were held with trade unions directly. Mm-hmm. But they'll all be and that will be included in the cabinet.
Yeah, good. And in terms of the social media and the other online communications, then. You did give a figure for the number of posts, but how are you tracking how effective those social media posts are? What I think, and this is as a former social media professional, I'm missing is how many individuals those posts reached, and how many actions were driven from those posts. It's not so much of you know, the consultation's closed now, so we can't do anything about it this year, but for years, you know, next year's budget and the year after that, I'd like to know that the communications team are really drilling down into this to improve.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't know if you heard it, but there were 39 social media posts, but you're quite right. What does that mean and what does that give us? I don't have those figures, but we could follow up on those metrics. I guess we were proposing to review afterwards how we did now the consultation is closed. So, for example, the Fairness Commission was only last night, you know, so there'll be something about us. We always do lessons learned following the budget process. That includes consultation and will include the reach of all of the elements of our work. And the other thing I didn't mention, of course, is the scrutiny attendance is also part of the consultation. You know, the view of the scrutiny members is also part of that, isn't it? But we will be doing that follow-up work. Thank you.
Okay. And normally, would you track data from the responses from the public on where in Newport they live, equalities data, things like that, so that you know exactly who you're reaching and who you need to do more work on reaching out to?
Normally, yes. Thank you. I'm just going to double check because I've got the form in front of me. Yes, yes, we did. Yeah, location, age also. Is that option comes up, the age profile and ethnicity.
Okay, good. I mean, and obviously there's nothing we can do about it this year, but I think in this meeting, given what we're supposed to be looking at, I would have liked to have had some of that data assessed already by the time it comes to us, because, you know, we can't really drill down into how effective that's been if the consultation only closed yesterday. So in future years, perhaps something to bear in mind that, you know, this process needs to be concluded a tiny bit earlier, just so that we can get what we need.
Thank you, Councillor. That is difficult because previously we've been criticised for closing it. We tried to maximise the time, but this meeting, I guess, could have been later. We're trying to maximise the time the consultation is open. I think you could also go a step further and say some of the things I've said would be useful to have in the report in advance as well, which I think we could look at in the future.
Yeah, yeah, it's not, it's, you know, it's not, I don't intend to be critical. It is a learning process for everyone, I suppose.
Yeah, again, this is really a political question, because the leader of the council did outline before Christmas why she set the parameters for the consultation as they were. So, you know, if you do want to take that point up politically, that may be more appropriate than doing it in a committee.
Okay, I'll bear that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holden, please.
How many people does this cover? So, how many tens of thousands or 100 people?
The population of Newport, doesn't mean?
Just off the top of your head. So that'd be an exact number.
155,000.
155,000. Okay, so 9 responses, that's just over 0.5%. So we'll cut that in half, we'll call it 1%. So we'll cut the population in half with a favour. Now, I know there were lots of mechanisms to feed back into this report. It was in the free paper, which goes to pretty much everybody's door. It was on the buses, it was online. There's loads and loads of mechanisms in order to feed in. So would it be fair to say that, going by the demographic data that you have, that a reasonable proportion of the population of Newport are not interested in the budget? And I'll clarify what I mean by that. Is that if I wasn't a councillor, and I do sit in I don't know, I'll say a fortunate position, I'm not interested, I wouldn't be interested in the budget because it wouldn't really affect me. So are we getting a skewed view on the budget because a certain reasonable portion of the people that live here are not massively affected by it, so they accepted it. They're not. Now I'm taking my council hat off here, and I'm speaking as an employed worker in a nice house. My wife has a good job, so it won't affect. You can put the budget up. Sorry, you can put the council tax up by 100%, and it wouldn't affect us. You could put it by 200%, and it wouldn't affect us. So again, that's why we sit in a fortunate position. However, how many other people sit in a position where it's not really going to affect them? This, because it is in reality quite a small jump in cost of the budget. So really, is this, do you feel that this, from the data stream, or the threads that are coming out and what you've already seen, that is a certain demographic that is feeding back all the responses to the questions? Well, it's quite a big question, but I'm going to put my council hat back on now, and I think you need to say as much as possible.
I'll just collect the 900 because it's 1300.
1300, okay, so that.
Because the
1.3%.
it is still a very low percentage
Yes.
of the overall population. I just defend that. We've done some work previously about the sorts of things people would respond to, because there's something else about the budget. It's too hard. They're all difficult choices. Someone else will make those choices, that kind of feeling. And obviously there are other things we can still on which are perhaps more interesting and easier things to engage with, and we don't get huge responses there either, despite a lot of pushing. I think that is a challenge, and it possibly does skew the results to people who are really adversely affected by the proposals. That's possibly right. That's the feedback we receive. But you know, the results I'm saying they're a 5-year high, and I'm really pleased about that. It is still overall.
So my challenge from what I said would be, how do you then engage, or how do you propose to engage with people that sit within my social group? I don't mean a white male, I mean financial, and within my financial sort of bracket. How do you engage and then get a true feeling of what's important, the people that sit in that? I'm okay, the level hasn't jumped up enough yet to start affecting me. How do we gain, has it been done elsewhere? Can we learn from somebody else? But how do we then get a big holistic picture about what's going on, if possible?
Please, if you I'm going to give the answer to that.
Well, you know, I'm not really sure it is. So I suppose the easy bit, do we look at what are the local authorities do and learn from those?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, you know, I basically talked about the progress here, you know, it wasn't that long ago. Certainly, you know, when I first started getting involved in public consultation engagement, we were quite pleased when we had 18 responses to the budget process. So, you know, we have come on significantly. I also think we've also come on with the fact that we used to look at the local authorities the way they did and think, oh, we should have done it like that. And now looking at the local authorities thinking, well, we've done it better. So I think, you know, we have come on quite a way. I think you have to, we certainly can't make any assumption of this about what people think about that if they haven't responded. All sorts of reasons why people don't respond. And it's not just public consultation. You know, if you look at, you know, the proportion of people who vote in elections, right? Depending on what the election is, right? We never went to, but that's the pinnacle of your involvement in the democratic process. It's a broad question. We need to look at all the things we do, right? So, you know, Tracy talked about the range of things we've done. I think we've had 10,000 responses to these things over the course of the year. So that is about building intelligence within the organisation about things that matter to people, not necessarily about specific things. I think it is probably right that when there actually is a particular proposal, the people who say the most about it are the people who get affected by it. I think that is. And organisationally, we just have to accept the fact that is the case. We will always have people. So I always feel like touching information, right? But you know, there are people who like that. But I think probably the views of the people who are actually affected by it are probably the ones that matter the most. We just have to incorporate that within it. The broader picture is about that ongoing conversation with the people who deal with about the stuff that's important, that's not important, things that are going to change. I would adapt to things that are going to change. So I think that's the most important step. And I suppose from a scrutiny perspective, over the coming, years, your challenge is going to bring back to the organisation and officers about actually how they're incorporating that intelligence into the decision making for the proposal, rather than a one-off event where we go and ask people what they think about things. So, sorry, that was a long answer to that question.
Well, I'd ask something else, Joe. No, don't run it too much on the numbers, but I just luckily have this in front of me. Some two really interesting comparison figures here on what does interest people, because everybody has a perception of Newport. Yes, we do. Everyone has a city centre safety view. I would say that's a real common thing people talk about. City centre safety in Newport, 1,600. Not hugely more, a bit better, that is disappointing, but not hugely more. Perception of Newport survey, just over 2,000. So, which, easier, smaller, shorter, everyone has a view. The trick is, as Rita said, for us to pick up wider intelligence and to make sure that the council's engagement with the public is one part of our understanding of public things. General social media noise, what we know about people's views generally, we need to take it in the context of all of that. I don't know if we'd ever reach, I can't real maths quickly.
I'm sorry, I wrote them down.
Half of the population.
I just made it look like I was clever.
Half of the population or whatever. And also people voted for councillors who they look to take that responsibility, I think, on their behalf.
And this committee has discussed this idea of consultation before. We've had some really digital responses to previous consultations. We have had made recommendations. I'm sure Councillor Evans will recall. And I can ask our committee advisor to dig through the records and find what recommendations were. But all of them involve more money, more expensive trade, more face-to-face surveys, that type of thing. And at this time, nobody would welcome us finding more ways to spend money rather than save money. Councillor Bright next.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I don't believe the clouds and the benign. It's great to have slow responses, but obviously things we all our control. It's just reading is probably prompted somebody to reply. But the mates, that's one thing. But on the other flip side, I have, as a parent, I have an email from school about the budget. I've seen in touch. I'm on Twitter. There's 20,000 followers on your city council Twitter. That's been posted lots of times there. So it's really good around reaching, etc. I think that's really good. I know it's only just happened, but can you kind of see if there's people answer the whole thing, or they've just been like people just one simple topic like opens or people sparking, but they've done the whole online survey.
I just think my family knows it's on my screen. And we deliberately, as you know, allowed people to skip over responses. Yeah, you can answer just one. We don't have that analysis yet, because it's only over yesterday, but obviously we can follow back up to the committee. There's a real tension there, then you want to know a person's full view. You also want as many people as possible to answer the survey, and they might not want to answer all 20 questions or whatever. We can follow on.
So do we know yet what percentage of the survey was completed by the individuals? Quite a high level number.
It looks close, but I'm not point to them.
I don't know what analysts you got to off the back end of it.
We'll do an, I suggested we'll do an updated analysis of this, so perhaps you're pretty
Yes, well, it's not going to be a particularly important question until we start to consider next year's consultation. So there's no need to rush the word.
We'll take it up, as Tracy said. There's a lessons session after every budget. No, that doesn't just apply to the that's the entire process. This is a lessons learned piece that goes on. It's for that. We're starting the classes.
So one question is about how you're going to do the analysis. I'm assuming you've got a software package to do it. Well, you might think long time you've done it with a spreadsheet. and then put the tables up and label it that way. It was a software package to do this.
I'm not sure actually, I haven't seen all these spreadsheets, I'm going to be honest.
That is the spreadsheet.
One of the issues is not everything is the multiple fees, isn't it? We have many systems here in the council.
I don't think, I'm not a massive fan of spreadsheets, as you probably know.
I got that, there's no looking at
Yeah.
I know some people were said, but
It's Councillor Armley just before it. He's just got off at the top of the screen.
has he, right, you just got off the top of the screen, right, Councillor Armley.
Thank you. Yeah, just a quick question. The results of the consultation, does that come back to this committee?
Perhaps circulate that, once it's all in, that would be helpful.
Oh, we've asked that.
We get to see those, don't we? Or do they go, I know they go perhaps as an appendix, perhaps as for the council before they make the budget next month, I think. But do they come to the committee here, to discuss how effective they've been and that sort of thing?
Well, that's what we've just asked for now, and that we'll have a look at these figures sometime later in the year before the next consultation process goes through. Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Baker Westhead.
Thank you. Sorry, I think the moment's passed a bit for what I was going to say. I mean, I think just as a general comment, there can be quite a lot of complacency amongst local residents, members of the public, in terms of responses to public consultation. But just to put it into context, maybe ahead of next year, it would be interesting to see how the responses for Newport compare to maybe other local authorities across Wales, if that sort of data is available, just to see if there's anything going on in other local authorities that encourages more engagement and just gives us an idea as to where we sit in terms of the level of responses we're getting within this authority.
Thank you, Councillor, and through the chair. We can pick that up in the lessons learned, and we also talk to the WLGA a lot on what constitutes good practice and how we can pick up different practice.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we are looking at councils that are in similar dire budgetary circumstances to ourselves. There's no point in benchmarking us against Bridgend. You suggested that plenty of money.
I don't think we're right. Anything is the case. I think this year, every authority is at varying degrees of challenge, but in a very, very challenging position. I am at a look at the projects. That is an interesting comparison. Yeah, but we'll do that. As part of that, we look at what happened in the local authority areas anyway to the need necessary.
We also need authorities generally with similar community makeups, urban areas and so on. So yeah, we would look to do that. Our previous work has been to look at what I'm going to call very witty solutions. I think the chairman from it. And comparatively, they did know better at that time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Sorry, Chair, just one final question from me. How, it's an easy one, it's a yes or no question, but I'm going to yes or no question. Are you going to feed this back to the public?
Yes. When you say this, you mean the response to the survey? Yes, because that goes out as part of the kind of what the decisions are and us communicated. That you told us and now we've done.
Not good and the bad though. We're not going to sugarcoat it, it's going to be good and bad.
Yes, that's yes and no.
Yes, but that
It will be a transparent.
You told us to do this and we haven't listened to you at all.
There'll be a summary report of this in cabinet meeting. Yeah. But that'll be added soon.
No, I don't think obviously they endorse the minutes from.
Well, where we are at the moment, we've had quite a long discussion about what's happened with budgetary proposals and preparation and the consultation. We need to focus our minds now on whether or not we are going to make comments on this to the cabinet. Okay. So, other than that, and we'll come back to this at the end of the meeting, or the end of the meeting. We're going to move on to endorsing the comments made by the Performance and Scrutiny Committee people, and that's starting on page 39. And this perhaps, Councillor James, way you can look at some of the questions you were thinking of earlier. I don't really think we need to stay with well, if one of you wanted to say.
If you want me to say for the Scrutiny Committee,
Yeah.
so this is my choice.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay, so if we can focus on page 39. Okay, so we've been asked to endorse the committee's observations or not. Okay, so
No, I think, Chairman, I can't argue against any of this incredibly detailed. I have put into a lot of information in here. I certainly would be uncomfortable if we didn't endorse their comments, because they're the comments of the committee and they're the ones which they've made. So it's not up to us to look at individual or discuss individual ones. I guess it's quite straightforward, but it's about seeing the committee and their comments, or if people got issues with it, then they're not endorsing them, I suppose.
Just as a matter of interest, on a comment on there on page 52 of the minutes, sorry, Chair. No, page 52. And someone asked, is it possible someone could pay more council tax if they could afford it? And that's correct.
I asked that question.
I might not have to say it.
No, I wouldn't have. This is what I mean. It's why we donate money to charity. We give stuff to organisations all of the time. Yet it seems to me fundamentally insane that there's not a mechanism where if a house is capable of helping, they're not. It's almost as if a brick wall.
Interesting concept.
I'm sure if you wanted to donate to a certain library or a specific thing, you'd be able to do that rather than paying extra council tax, surely.
It was one of the things which I suggested previously is if somebody has an affinity towards a service, could, and it was probably very, very complicated and very, very difficult to do. It just doesn't seem, for me, it doesn't seem beyond the wit of man to allow somebody to make an overpayment. I might be simplifying too much.
And it would be interesting to have my review for this particular one. So we
shot it down.
The reforms, tax regulation.
That's what he said.
Mechanisms for council tax reduction, basically the circumstances, but not council tax extension increases as a result of that. I suppose the point of it would be interesting one to have as part of conversations over the next couple of years is, Councillor Evans said, asking people that they pay for additional services. A lot of that comes down to the way you constitute it. I don't think as local authority it's very easy for us to ask people to overpay. Since we are able to set charges for things and charge people accordingly. Charities and things that are set with charitable status are allowed to take donations and things, and we're not able to do that. But again, when we're looking at new models, that might be the things we have to that.
With that, what you just said in mind, then, is the council in the constitution is allowed to have the Charities Commission allowing a council to create a charity?
What we have, people like. you've got like this scope. So I'm going to ask what Liz, because Liz has got charitable status, isn't it?
I believe so.
So we're able to create that, but that's an RS.
No, that's probably, yeah.
It's different. So we're able to do that. We're able to create a variety of different models for service delivery. So, for instance, from a technical company, it's great, to a partnership arrangement, to a charitable vehicle. But if it's an RS, it has to be
Yeah.
But, as a charity trustee for a long time, there's a lot of complicated bits of taxation. And if we could create Newport as a charity as a whole, that could be greatly advantage to us as a city, but it wouldn't terribly please any of the governments.
It's complex.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
But the base answer, correct answer is no, you can't.
Did I read somewhere they're talking about rebanding and extending the upper band limits for private properties?
My understanding is that there's going to be a review of council tax values. Like you want us to, we've not done that. We can take that as an action sign.
We're not going to make you do the work of state really. If somebody else is to address it, it shouldn't be for you to answer it. Right. So other than the comment that Councillor Evans made that we endorse all of our sister committees' comments, has anybody else to say on this matter?
Councillor James says.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So in answer to item 2, then Samantha, what are we going to say? Or what happens then on the budget proposal?
On item 2, go back to the beginning of the better. So, do you have anyone wishes to make any comments on the budget process and public engagement? So I've noticed all the comments that were made in committee. Do you want me to go through them, or?
I'm leaving you go.
Let me have a look.
Do you want me to step over?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I suppose the first comment really is that it starts really and truly with the engagement side of things, less of the drafting of the budget. And it was just that committee welcomed, the improved consultation process, all of the different methods of engagement. Obviously, as Tracy said, are the best numbers we've seen in a long time. That was the main comment I've taken from that. As well as welcoming the pre-budget consultation and that change. I've also noted committees understanding that it is a difficult consultation to put out in the situation that it is, and that you appreciate that. Aside from that, the majority of it, as you said here, was discussion, questions, and a few actions raised, obviously, which I have noted, and I'd be happy to read back if committee needs me to.
Well, if we do want to input anything to Cabinet, we need to do it very rapidly, because obviously they're going to meet in 2 weeks' time to finalise budget before it goes to council.
So if we say then that the comments I had so far, and just to clarify, Chair, would you say that the minutes from the performance scrutiny committees have been endorsed? Do you think that's fair?
Yes.
Yeah. Will be the committee welcoming the improved consultation engagement and what we're saying, not pushing out the message more, but more advertisement of it.
Pre-consultations, pre-budget consultations.
Yeah.
Is an improvement.
Yeah.
Previous.
And pre-budget consultation. Is there any other specific comments committee want me to know now?
Well, I'm sure you'll be mentioning the comments made by everybody in the minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
I think the important thing is also because we haven't actually seen details is getting the information on to which perhaps in the future will be helpful for our recommendations next year.
Well, we still look at this current bill. Next year is not really any different. Unless the cabinet and the leader reduce the time of consultation.
No, so what I'm suggesting is that just as last year we suggested pre-budget consultation, that we looked at what well and done well, which did when we could start the consultation earlier, or recommend to cabinet that the consultation starts earlier, with improvements which have been as a result of the feedback they had from this year. So it's just our job is to sort of make recommendations which might improve the process.
But wouldn't that be determined by the Richard Hall grant, which doesn't come out until the middle of December?
Well, not necessarily, because I think whatever you do, you'll be. It's how you consult with people, what responses you give back, how you analyse the details. So that's not going to change. The figures will change, but the whole concept of doing it, maybe going back to do some face-to-face questionnaires, street surveys, things like that, which we recommended in the past.
But the whole element of this consultation looked more dire at the time when it was formulated, and it's turned out to be was that we were at 9.5% council tax increase. We couldn't have known that until sometime in December.
But it's not about the level of increase, it's about the level of engagement and how you encourage more people to engage in the process, and how you get a more realistic feedback from residents, I guess. So it's not really about numbers, it's about improving consultation. You can always improve. Try and improve it.
Yes, I see your point, Matthew, but it's like what are we consulting them against? Consulting them against the budget cuts and the proposal of what is coming forward from the council.
So this is
So I don't
looking for next year. Looking for next year.
It's almost a bit horse and cart. So I know what you're saying. We want to get as much information as possible,
and analyse how well our public engagement is.
Yeah, but the public engagement needs to be meaningful. We need to have meaningful feedback against problems that we're facing, and we don't know what those problems are going to be without knowing where the financial position is going to be.
But it's more the processes rather than.
Yeah, we need to bottom out how to get as much information as possible, and how that is done is, I don't think it's that. It could be something as, I don't know, using some of the new social media platforms that are sweeping the nation or the world. It's just, I don't know how to do it. Lauren, I don't know from what you said earlier, if you've got any angle on what's a really good way to get as much engagement as possible.
I mean, I think it depends on what the people on your page would engage in. I think to, give advice to the council on that, I need access to the pages so that I could run an audit. It's not something I'm really in a position to engage with. I think one of the things I noticed is that the council quite often use the same budget graphic, and what I found in my work is that if you post in the same content to meta-based platforms in particular over and over, then the algorithm will mark those down, and that you'll be reaching fewer people every time. So but that's really, that's for the officers to look at the data. That they need to be figuring that out for themselves.
I just wondered if you had a golden thread for us to pull.
There is no silver bullet. It's long-term, meaningful analysis really that needs to take place.
But we had a dire PSPO consultation. Was it last year or the year before, Matthew? And when we had 116 people responded, 75,000 if you cut the population in half.
I think it's the big West Head is indicating.
Please, Councillor? You're on mute, Blair.
Sorry, it's playing up a bit. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just wanted to say that obviously it's been decided to go for the longest period of consultation, which is, I think, laudable, you know, given the magnitude of the problems being faced financially. Maybe as a result of what's going on this year, it will make members of the public more aware, because they are going to be affected. Whether they think they're going to be impacted or not, they will be. That's the reality of it. And maybe coming into next year's budget, it might be an idea to try to publicise in advance of the public consultation that this process will be happening. So it's sort of like a pre-consultation period where obviously we won't have specifics because the Cabinet won't have set out any draft budget at that point, but where there can be some way of engendering more public engagement by publicising the fact that the engagement process will be about to start. I'm not sure if that is regularly done, but it might be a way of trying to, you know, make people aware that they're going to be required to engage if they want to have any say in what's going on, because we're probably going to be in this financial predicament for a year or two to come, but from the way that the projections are looking with this report.
Which, yeah, Chair, which is why I think really this committee need to look at the results of the public consultation this time. I am absolutely struck by the number of people who had no idea they're going to be affected by some of the proposals there, and they've just realized it through sometimes, you know, someone mentioning it or something like that. And there is no substitute for engagement with the actual group of people, the stakeholders that are targeted or affected by these cuts. I mean, you look at the Oaklands, you look at the sort of proposal to cancel the shorter breaks for carers, and you know, people and people just realize it because they've heard about it. I think, you know, this committee really need to look, and I suggest really, I hope colleagues support this, that the results do come back to either the next meeting or the meeting after that. I think next meeting might be a good idea for us to just to look at that, and the timing I think is quite right. And I think also the suggestion, how do we measure up against other local authorities in terms of, you know, the effectiveness of our consultation process. You know, someone pointed out in the performance people, these are actual people we are dealing with, you know, not numbers, people actually going to be affected by this. And I think we should take that seriously, really. And something ought to go to the Cabinet about this. But, you know, this sort of norm we fell in, you know, December to February or January or whatever, some of these measures might have been known before, and I think more time could have been allowed for that. But I like just to see how well this public consultation has reached people. I think that's the important thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, so I think we're looking for more publicity that the consultation is going to take place. We can have the results of this consultation as agenda item. Sometimes the suggestion is as soon as possible. Okay, so we can do that. What else have we got?
Just on top of that, obviously the welcoming of the improved consultation engagement and including the pre-budget consultation. The comment that seeing the data would be beneficial to your understanding of the consultation, and the recommendation of more face-to-face consultation and more spending on the consultation.
Are we content with more spending on the consultation at this point in time?
The thing is, for me, the more information that we can gain and the more feedback that we can get, the more idea generations that can come from it. So if we've got, if you're hitting the whole demographic, you only need one or two good ideas which then get expanded upon, which the council, the office might not be thinking about, the cabinet members might not be thinking about. It's about, for me, it's very much the engagement piece. It's about getting as much data as you possibly can to make a truly informed or as much of an informed decision as you possibly can. And it's everybody said it's very, very difficult, and how do you engage with somebody that it's not going to affect? It will affect, but it's not going to affect them fundamentally and directly. Therefore, they're not that interested in it. However, they could have a very, very good idea about something that would be very helpful. And I think we're missing a trick there. And I don't know how to resolve that.
Okay, you fine with that?
Absolutely. I think to be honest with you, I think that's included in the more spending. Really, it's preventative. I think is what your argument would be.
But it's more spending, but it doesn't necessarily mean more spending.
Is it more reallocation of what we're already doing? Is that what you mean at the?
No, there may well be a mechanism of getting the information that we need without big spends. I don't know what that is. It's the PR and all that, and that's not my body. I can't do it. However, there are people out there that do it, and there must be a way, without a massive budget requirement, to try and get that engagement piece correct. And it's like Lauren said, if the analytics, if they're seeing the repetitive stuff, they might drop down the tables. I would assume that they know that, but I'm only assuming that they know that.
Yeah.
So it's how do we do it, and I don't know the answer to that.
Well, the council has a PR team, so this is something that we should be asking them to look into.
Yeah. Are they using all the right mechanisms? Are they doing all the right things? Like both there, they got 20,000 Twitter followers. But of that 20,000 Twitter followers, is the data set that I don't know the analytics behind Twitter, but there might only be half those people might only live in Newport, the other half might be anywhere around the world.
Yeah.
If I can shed some light on that, no, Twitter doesn't normally tell you where your Twitter followers are based. You would get that sort of data from Facebook, but that depends on users self-reporting.
Just to raise it as a point, really, the reintroduction of ward meetings, that might be a way to improve engagement. It would include the work budget ward meeting as it's going to be done services at the minute and services committee. I'm trying to sort of summarise what you're trying to. Sorry.
I know. Yeah. It's a bit of a catch-all statement.
I think it's fair to say, obviously, that Reece and Tracy did say that they do lessons learned and they always look for ways to improve. Is it that you would want to have sight of their lessons learned and how they're thinking of improving, or like you said, we're not PR experts, we're not the comms experts. I'm just trying to think of how to summarise really, because I understand what you're trying to say is engage with the people who might not either be service users or be interested in what the budget's.
And I'll use take my council hat. I'm going to use you as an example. The only services I use in the council are my waste collections. If I'm being completely honest, that's the only ones I use. And how many other people of the population of Newport sit within that sort of group? And it's how do we then gain insight from that group of people? Because they may have some brilliant ideas, but if we're not tapping into them because they go, actually, this doesn't really affect me. My bin's going to be collected every 3 weeks. I only have it anyway, so that's fine. It doesn't affect me. However, there may well be other things that they, from their working lives or their own experiences, that they could then offer up suggestions.
So I think at the heart of it, it's looking at a way to expand the engagement to include people that aren't service users, that maybe aren't directly affected by what is included in the budget proposal.
Yes.
Is that the heart of it, do you think? Yeah. Cool. I'll note that as expanded engagement outside of service users.
Well, I agree with your suggestion that we see their lessons learned, because currently we don't know what data we're talking about at the moment. That we see what lessons learned, and then from there we can make recommendations on that. Not the recommendation needed.
Yeah.
Okay, on lessons learned, I can put that in, that's not a problem.
I'm thinking about the process, and this was a very much more expansive consultation than has ever been tried before in Newport. And it will be interesting to see how many people fill in every last box, because I tend to look at these things and think, well, okay, yeah, I'm a user of Newport City Services, or I have been, but really I'm looking at what will directly affect my own ward, rather than I would think of commenting on a cut proposal for one of the other wards. I would think it's probably just not the thing to do.
Or if for example, again, carrying on that thread, if you're at 30 something and they say we're going to reduce bus services, you don't use the buses, so you're not going to comment. It's about, but somebody might come and say, well, actually, we thought of this. We've done this in work. It's just trying to get as much information as possible.
Yeah. Well, we've done everything that people want to try to achieve. We just can't find it.
I think Councillor Baker Westhead just indicated to come in again.
Please, Claire, if you're there.
Sorry, I'm sort of slightly thinking down a different thread to that. I'm just thinking about the the result of what's going to happen when the budget is finally settled, and how that moves through the year, of maybe having some sort of open consultation that is running ahead of the next budget, so people get a chance when they start seeing the impact of what's going on because of the current sort of financial crisis that's impacting everybody, from fuel bills right down to what's going on with council tax and everything else. Once that really does start impacting people, then maybe throughout Newport we need a process where, as you say, either ward meetings regularly that can be then coordinated to get a really sort of like coordinated response. So the information that you're getting is actually of some use, because it's all well and good getting information, but it needs to be useful information that can inform us going forward. So some sort of a process for that would be useful, I think. It's running throughout the entire year up to the start of the next budgetary process, just because of the the difficulties that not just this council but all councils are facing, and then that could inform whatever decision making process is going on this time next year. But I don't know if there's any mechanism that can be used for that sort of rolling programme of consultation.
Claire, would I be right in thinking you're kind of suggesting like a suggestion box we might have in a workplace?
It's along those lines, but
simplifying it too much.
But on a grander scheme, really, isn't it? Yeah. It's actually a directed sort of form of open consultation. I mean, we get that anyway, because we get contact in the contact centre and we get our inquiries coming through us as councillors. But it's some sort of vehicle for measuring the levels of inquiries that we're getting through, and whether there's any similarities between the difficulties people are facing and the issues that they're confronted with. It's a way of trying to gather that information in a useful fashion, because we all work quite disparately. It's just the nature of what we have to do as councillors, and we feed information into the the various channels within the council when we get individual inquiries. But we might see a sort of a specific trends and specific rises in certain sorts of inquiries. Like at the moment, I've noticed myself that I'm getting inquiries that are sort of union based, which certainly didn't happen at the start, of my term. But as we're going into this period through the winter, with more and more strikes in the offing, I'm getting people that are sort of actually coming from not just sort of like broad brush inquiries from residents that are sort of like approaching every single councillor asking for support for the unions and strikes. But for example, I had a ward member recently who was canvassing just for support because one of the teaching unions that she's attached to is going on strike, but she was bringing to the attention of me as a local councillor because I'm in her ward. So we're going to, I think, but I'm not talking specifically about strike action. I mean, but in general, we might see a specific rise in certain sorts of inquiries, like people raising inquiries about the difficulties they're facing, you know, as a result maybe of the rising council tax, inquiries about sort of certain sort of social services and social care that they're experiencing difficulty with, and it's a way of measuring the trends for that and the level of difficulty that people might be experiencing, because that's a way that we can see where the problems are, you know, as a result, and where, I mean, a lot of the councillors are going to be aware anyway, and definitely cabinet members, I'm sure, of where they need to focus the budget effort, you know, with the limited financial assistance that's actually come down from central government. But it's just a way of really trying to gather that information usefully going forward, so that we can try to push the assistance out to everywhere that it's really needed. And if there's specific spikes in certain areas that we weren't expecting, then we're aware of it. Sorry if I've rambled on a bit, but just trying to formulate a thought process for that really, and a system that might work.
Okay, so I think we could sum that up as paying more attention to the calls for help that we get through both councillors and the contact centre of the council, making sure that those calls are analysed.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
What I also noted, Councillor, that you said, obviously correct me if I'm wrong, one of your recommendations was an open consultation throughout the year that relates to the impacts of these saving proposals, is that right?
Yeah, I think it might, it just gives us the information that we need to really understand what's going on, because some people are reluctant to engage, some people don't understand how to engage maybe effectively. But if we're getting that information in anyway, then that could be very useful, you know, in shaping further decision making within the council.
If it's all right with you, Chair, you know, we've had quite a lot of discussion. I'll go through what I've got again, just to make sure I've got everything 100%. It's such an important meeting.
Yes.
Starting at the top again, sorry to repeat myself. The welcoming of the improved consultation, consultative engagement, and the inclusion of the pre-budget consultation. The comment that it would be helpful to see the data before meeting. The recommendation of more face-to-face consultation. The appreciation of the longest period of consultation applicable being used, but how do I word it? Felt that we could publicise the consultation in advance of it occurring. Expanded engagement outside of service areas, service users, to those who have limited interactions with the council and council services. Bringing back the results of the public consultation, how we're measuring up against other authorities, and an update on lessons learned as soon as possible. And then on those final points, the recommendation that more attention to individual calls and inquiries is recorded, and the recommendation of an open consultation throughout the year relating to the impact of the proposals on residents. We're happy with that, committee? Okay, everybody content? Right, thank you very much. Moving on to item 6 then. Over to you, Samantha. It's just me again, sorry. Let me pull up my page. I feel like committee, my agenda has just closed this up. Oh, wonderful, thank you. So, same as usual, really, just an update on the action plan. We've only got the 2 outstanding actions, which are the details of 38 businesses that received grant funding and an update for the money set aside by the Council for Regeneration project. I spoke with the House Service yesterday and he is chasing those for us, so you should have them shortly. In relation to the Forward Work programme, the next meeting for the committee would be the 3rd of March, which should have been the Planning and Performance Risk Management Framework meeting. The report writer did contact me yesterday and asked that we push that back to the 28th of April meeting if the committee are happy with that. And potentially then, if it works for Reese and Tracy, we could have the meeting with the updates about the data on the 3rd of March, potentially, if it works for them. But open to whatever committee thinks we could. Content with that?
So we meet on 3rd March, just not one item on.
So that item that's been pushed back to April, just.
Yeah, I understand. So I'm not asking you to potentially on the 3rd March we would meet with They've got the data in the consultation.
Yes, obviously if they've got the data, it's been analysed and they have everything ready to present to committee, I could suggest that date to them. Obviously,
that would just be a single item, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would just be the single item there.
I don't think for something that is only advisory that we can justify calling a meeting for that one item.
That's absolutely fine. I could suggest they bring it to the April meeting and we have the two items together, if committee prefers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if they could forward the information beforehand, so
Yeah.
if someone to read it, that would be.
From my understanding, a lot of the information will be available in the cabinet minutes, the cabinet papers, from what Marion and Reece were saying, so the data from the consultation should be available from the 15th. But the more specific lessons learned update that we wanted, I think, I can certainly ask.
So what is the planning and performance risk management framework about?
I'm not 100% sure if I'm honest with you, because it's a new item.
Not the only one.
Because it's a new item, I think it's about how the framework going forward, the performance framework going forward. But again, I can double check with the report writer and provide an update through email, just clarification.
Thank you.
That's all from me, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. The risk management framework is not new, is it?
I think it's,
It can be the format of it.
yeah, I'll double check with the report writer and I'll provide them through email as soon as I can.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for your attendance this morning.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.